I've been living and working in Japan for a while now. It's been almost 10 years, and in those 10 years I've worked a plethora of different jobs. But for you, someone who wants to come and live and work in Japan yourself, that first crucial step, actually moving to Japan, is extremely difficult. And if you're looking to live and work in Japan in 2026, look no further. I have built you in this video a solid roadmap to teach you how to go from moving from my country to Japan to getting that first crucial visa to eventually starting a career and a life in Japan. This roadmap is built on the premise that you have no connections to Japan. No Japanese, no job connections, no real plan, no worries. This is the path for you. Let's jump into it. Step 1 seems to be obvious. Get yourself to Japan. But I don't mean just travel to the country. I mean find yourself a job that will bring you from your home country to Japan. And that is more easily said than done. International companies usually hire from inside of the country. It costs a lot more money and it's a lot more time and a lot more risk to hire a potential candidate from another country when Japan is full of potential candidates, both domestic and international. But for this video, we're assuming that you once again have no connections, no skills, no Japanese. So these big international companies that have glistening jobs at senior or higher levels, they're not for you. We're starting from the bottom. We're starting from the basics. The easiest path is English teaching. You'll be flung into the random countryside of Japan to mold young minds about the powers and usefulness of English. Now, English teaching is the easiest path, but there is a plethora of downsides one has to combat becoming an English teacher in Japan. And there are a couple of videos already out there talking about these things. And if you'd also like my take on some of the bad things about English teaching, let me know in the comments down below. I've got a video script that I've already written, so eventually I'll make the video and upload it. While English teaching as an international has its issues, the ease of getting into the country on an English teaching instructor visa cannot be disputed. It's so easy. English teaching companies are constantly fighting to get new bodies into classrooms, and it's been that way for the last 30 years now. There are also a ton of different English dispatch companies you can choose from. Interact, the JET program, Borderlink, a bunch of other ones you can choose from. And each one of these companies has pros and cons. And it's up to you to decide which of these companies you would like to join. I took the English teaching route and joined a company called Interact. And while the company does have its cons, the pay is pretty trash, the hours are golden. And it allowed me enough free time to basically skill up, study languages, and do all the things I needed to do in order to eventually stop teaching English and have the career that I have today. So while Interact isn't the best company, for the amount of free time it gave me, honestly, I can't dispute it. It was pretty well done. If you are completely against English teaching, or for whatever reason you can't dive into English teaching, there are other options you can take. Japan has a few industries that are struggling right now. They either don't have enough people to work the jobs, don't have enough skilled people working those positions, or the positions require someone bilingual with technical skills, and thus it's hard to fill with the domestic talent that we currently have. These industries are the hospitality industry, becoming a food worker or a care worker. There's also places in business, tech, and coding that one can dive into. These industries are currently hard pressed to find workers, and it's half because some of them take a little more skill and international knowledge to work, like working in coding or tech. But some of these industries are just industries that Japanese people don't want to work in, and so they're filling those blank spaces with international workers. And yes, outside of maybe coding, tech, and teaching, these aren't the most glamorous of industries, but they'll get you into the country and they'll get you a visa. And I think for the first step, that's the most important thing. Get yourself into Japan. Speaking from a man who's been here for a while, if you have coding skills, go into coding. I think you get paid a little bit less in Japan than you would working for an international company in your home country. But the question isn't, do you want to get paid more or less? The question is, do you want to work and start a career in Japan? And while English teaching isn't the most glamorous work you can do here, the hours are really friendly and it does allow you a lot of time to do other things outside of the school grounds. All of these industries I've mentioned don't require you to have a high level of Japanese. English teaching, for example, doesn't require you to have any Japanese. They actually prefer if you don't speak conversational Japanese, just so you don't jump in and out of the language when you're teaching in class. For most of these positions, you only really need to know the most basic of basic Japanese, stuff that you're going to pick up during training and also when you start doing on-the-job training. It's very important to get yourself into the country first. Once you're in Japan, changing jobs and moving from visa to visa is a lot easier. From outside of the country, trying to get into Japan on some kind of high-paying job is a lot more difficult. So now you've got yourself into the country, what do? What is step 2? Well, that's easy.
I don't speak Japanese.
This is going to surprise you, but Japanese, the most essential skill for living in Japan. I know, calm down. It blew my mind as well. But to live and work in Japan, you're gonna need some resemblance of Japanese. And I've been saying this for about 10 years. When I first got to Japan 10 years ago, I told all my colleagues, hey guys, if you're planning to live here long term, start learning some Japanese. By start learning some Japanese, I'm not telling you to lock in real hardcore and start aiming for N1. I mean, N1's fabulous. It'll be great to eventually have, but it's not really that important for your career progression. And I can hear the N1 havers freaking out, but I don't have any of the N exams. None. I don't have N5 or 4, 3, 2 or 1. But I've managed to live and work in Japan very successfully without having any of those exams. Every single interview I've gone to has gone something like this. So, do you have any of the N exams? No. Okay, cool, next question. Not having any of the N exams doesn't hinder your interview or hinder your chances to get any jobs. It's kind of just a box they want to check. Do you have an N exam? If you do, what level do you have? And then they check a little box. And that's kind of it. And if you don't have them, they just kind of go, well, we're interviewing in Japanese and you're perfectly fine interviewing in Japanese, so we assume your Japanese is fine. Next question. Even now, I would only actually try to pass one of the N exams if it would increase my salary. Because there are certain jobs that if you have one of the N exams, you get a small bump in your salary. So what Japanese should you be trying to master if you're not aiming for N1 or N2? Well, that's half kind of up to you. On the one hand, you want to be studying the fundamentals. You need them. They're fundamental. That's your basic introductions. That's all of your basic sentence structures. But when it comes to vocabulary, the words you should be using, how you should be using them, that all depends on what industry you want to get yourself into. Me, for example, I wanted to get into media. So I started studying Japanese related to media. But I didn't know what type of media I wanted to go into. So I just kind of studied everything to do with media. I would create flashcards, read Japanese newspapers, and generally immerse myself in Japanese media so I can understand the lingo, the dialect a little bit better. Once you have your fundamentals in Japanese down, and then a little bit of industry-focused Japanese, the only thing you need after that is interview Japanese. And there are so many books you can find, so many web series, so many online articles to read about how to interview in Japanese. You're going to be spoiled for choice. It's very, very straightforward. And that's kind of it. There's no need to shoot for N2. You just want to get conversational in the industry you want to work in, and then learn how to interview in Japanese. And that's it. Even if your target industry works in both Japanese and English, it does make sense to learn how to interview in Japanese, only because for these bilingual companies, they normally do like part of the interview in English and then part of the interview in Japanese. So you've got to Japan, your language is looking beautiful. What is the next step? If you're coming to Japan with minimal to no skills, this is the time we start skilling up. Your first job in Japan, especially if it's English teaching, will give you more than enough time to start skilling up. These skills should be related to the industry you eventually want to get yourself into. I wanted to go into media, but I didn't know exactly what type or what style of media I wanted to get myself into. So what I did was take the entire smorgasbord that is media and focused on 2 to 3 areas that I found interesting and I could use as transferable skills when I eventually start working in media. I focused on writing, photography, and a little bit of videography, with writing and photography being sort of my main focuses for a long time. Skilling up is going to be the most important thing you do when you first come to Japan. I would say more important than Japanese. Japanese is very important, but having some kind of extra skill you can use once you're in Japan is going to be infinitely more useful. Remember, you're an international person coming to the country. While you may not speak Japanese fluently, you do speak English, which is a skill. So now all you need is one more skill that you can take to different companies and show them, hey, look, I can do things other than teach English, for example. It's going to be very important for your resume as well, because at the moment, your entire career history in Japan is basically just whatever job you first got when you came here, be it English teaching, coding, hospitality, or whatever other industry you found yourself in when you first arrived here. So you're going to have to find interesting and unique ways to show you have skills outside of the industry that you were first put in when you came to live and work in Japan. And while this does sound difficult, skills plus Japanese gets you very, very far. I managed to break into the media industry because I did have some experience writing and modeling and doing photography in Japan, and I also spoke Japanese to a good enough level where I would be an asset in the company. So they took a chance on me and I managed to work in a media company. Once you've skilled up, it's time to start applying for companies. And I would say be a little bit careful when you're applying to companies. If I can offer one piece of advice, avoid Japanese legacy companies. That's old style companies that still like to delve into that old school style of Japanese work culture. That means low pay, long hours, definitely some kind of harassment, and generally a company atmosphere that isn't too foreigner friendly, or at least isn't really too friendly for anyone working there, to be fair. I've heard enough stories, I've worked with enough companies to know that a lot of these legacy companies aren't the best place to be working, especially for you, an international person coming to live and work in Japan. So the question is, where do you work? Where do you apply to? The answer is easier than you think. You want to be working for a company that has some kind of a hybrid language system. That's a company that works in both English and Japanese. Any international companies, those would be great to work for. Those are companies that have head offices in other countries, but also have a little tiny office in Japan as well. Those places are generally the best places to work. It mixes the fun and intrigue of working in Japan with a more relaxed Western style of work culture, which I found to be the best situation to put yourself in if you want to live and work in Japan. Honestly, do be careful. Even in 2026, there are a lot of buraku kaisha, which are like black, bad companies, and just do your best to avoid these companies, because I want you to come and live and work in Japan and just have the most fantastic time, settle in, and just find yourself wanting to live in Japan forever. If you do want to hear about buraku kaisha and how bad some of these companies are, let me know in the comments down below. I'll be very happy to research and let you guys know about what makes these companies just so awful to work for. So where do you find yourself these fantastic hybrid companies that work in multiple languages? Honestly, in 2026, there are a few good places you can look. LinkedIn or Business Facebook is a really good place to look for jobs in Japan. They've got a lot of remote positions, a lot of hybrid jobs, and a lot of jobs that need both English and Japanese to work in. And LinkedIn is kind of constantly pumping these jobs out to the open market, so I would definitely log in and see what you can get. There are also these websites. They have a lot of interesting jobs and opportunities there. Some of them cater more towards the English teaching job market, but when it comes down to it, if you're looking for work, casting a wide net is honestly the best thing you can do. The process of finding a job in Japan might be a little bit slow, however, you're in no rush. You still have to skill up and you still have Japanese to study. I would say the entire thing would probably take you about 2 years.
Money, 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 money.
The steps from I'm living in my home country to I've started a career in Japan do seem very simple, and that's because they kind of are. What I've not shown is the time period it might take you to go from leaving my home country to starting a career. And honestly, that all depends on you. I took 2 years. It took me 2 years to go from I'm an English teacher in Japan to I'm starting a career. And by which I mean I've got my first foot into an industry that isn't English teaching, and it's something that I want to do for a long time. And it took me 2 years because I wanted to hang out. I was in Japan, I met a bunch of new friends, I was young, I think early to mid 20s. I wanted to hang out. I wanted to explore Japan. I wanted to drink with the boys on the weekend. There were places in Japan I'd never visited before, and I wanted to go and visit them while I had the time to visit those locations. So I took my time, and honestly, there is no rush. Once you start a career in Japan, you find you're gonna have less time to do the things that you want to do. If you have time, if you're living comfortably in Japan, if you're enjoying your life here, take it slow, enjoy your time being young in Japan, explore, travel, dive into Japanese culture. Before you start a career here, really explore if you want to live in Japan. I assume if you're following this path and you eventually want to live in Japan, you've traveled here before. But living in Japan and traveling in Japan are very different. So spend that year or two studying, skilling up, but also really diving into Japan to see if it's the country for you, just as it was and still is the country for me. Also, the reason these steps are so successful is that generally companies are more willing to hire talent who are already living inside of Japan and are clearly acclimatized to living and working here, which means they're not going to get homesick and randomly run back to their home country after the company has invested hundreds of thousands of yen to get them over from home country to Japan. With English teaching, it's a big revolving door. They're very happy shipping teachers in by the truckload because even if a truckload of teachers leave 1 year, there are 2 trucks waiting to take their place. So to recap on these simple steps, get to the country, learn the language, skill up, search for jobs. It is very straightforward, but this path is tried and tested and has worked for me and about 1,000 other people that I know. Do you know what? While I've got you here, this is very much the big picture of how to move from your home country to Japan, live and work here, and then start a career. And there are a lot of tiny steps along the way that some people might miss, or by the time they realize this step needs to be taken, it's too late. And there's one that I need to warn you of in advance, and that's company housing. If you find yourself coming to Japan as an English teacher or in a different industry, a lot of time they'll set you up in company housing. This is great. Company housing is easy. It means you don't have to waste time running around looking for a house last minute from your temporary hotel. However, the minute you leave your job, you now must also leave the company housing, and that's a massive problem. A lot of people say once you leave company housing, you should run into some kind of shared house situation. Japan has a lot of these shared house companies. While it's easy to live there, especially if you're looking to get a community, make some friends in the area pretty instantly, I find them to be very expensive for what they are. Not all of them, but a lot of them. Once I left my company housing, I moved to West Tokyo in a place called Kogane, and I lived in my Kogane apartment for about 5 years, I think. And this apartment was cheap. Leaving company housing as soon as possible is honestly the best thing you can do for your mental health and stress. There's no more connection of, if I leave my job, I'm gonna also lose my place of live. Because there is stress living in company housing. If the English dispatch company, for example, loses the contract in the area, do you also lose your housing? Living in your own accommodation with a contract connected to your name is just far easier and way less stressful. And if you're looking to move house in Japan, I got a video right here telling you some tips and tricks of how to actually move house in Japan without breaking your bank. But guys, that is the roadmap of coming to Japan. If you're liking these videos, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. It really helps out this channel. And if you want to watch one more of my videos, I got one right here. It's about Japan's biggest tourist blunder. Check it out. It's insane. It costs them a lot of money. But I'll see you in the next one. Literally tying this tie for a 3-second skip.